special guest keynote speaker. During this election season, she gave me life. I stood up, I acted like I was in church talking to my TV. My husband was like, why do you have it on CNN so often? I'm like, Angela's on, you need to be quiet, sir. I'll get with you in a second. Pause. She's the only political commentator who can give a boy bye appropriately. She comes with receipts. But my favorite phrase this year was, are you going to say something while your mouth is moving? And we know, she lets us know, we built this joint for what? All right, now let me get to the official introduction. That was just my piece. That was my little freestyle. Okay, our featured keynote speaker, you already know, Angelo Rai, who is principal and CEO of Impact Strategies, an organization that seeks to encourage young professionals in 3 core areas: economic empowerment, civic engagement, and political involvement. With an unwavering commitment to ensuring positive change in the political process, Rai is a prominent political strategist who offers regular on-air commentary for several media outlets, including BET, CNN, HuffPost Live, and more. She is also a CNN political commentator and NPR political analyst. Rai served as the executive director and general counsel to the Congressional Black Caucus for the 112th Congress. In her role, she was tasked with developing the overall legislative and political strategy for the caucus. Prior to working for the CBC, she served as senior advisor and counsel to the House Committee on Homeland Security under the leadership of Congressman Benny G. Thompson. So I'm going to ask you to put down your fork, stand up, put your hands together, and let us give a Kansas City welcome to Angelo Rai. Let's do it again, Kansas City style. And there will be a brief, if we have time, there will be a brief Q&A afterwards. Once again, emphasis on brief, meaning short, to the point, quick, no backstory. Because we have a lot of people that want to talk to Angelo Rai. Thank you for coming to Kansas City.
Can you hear me? Not yet? I followed the instructions. Is that working? Is that just too low down here? Maybe it's because of where it's facing. 1 second. Try it that way. How's that? Not really? Okay, let's not do this. Let's do it this way. Is this still on? Yeah? No? Okay. Well, that's a buzzkill, huh? That's not your fault. Yes. How's that? Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Getting started a little late here. Thank you all so much for having me today. I am really thrilled to be here, in part because I call them my work parents. I know that's your work parents too, or maybe everybody's just still getting sorted out. But anyway, I love being in Kansas City because my Congressional Black Caucus chairman boss, Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver, is of course, yes, the member of Congress representing this area. And I believe that his lovely bride, Mrs. Diane Cleaver, is here, right? Where is she? Yay, she's kind of shy, but she stood up a little bit. I definitely want to give her a round of applause. She's doing amazing work here in the city, as I'm sure many of you all know. I also want to thank your sponsor and the Chancellor of Diversity and Inclusion here at UMKC, and that is none other than Dr. Susan Wilson. Where are you, Dr. Wilson? Thank you so much. We've already selfied. But she's a pleasure to meet, so thank you so much. And then lastly, but certainly not least, for the members of the committee that put this year's conference on, will you stand? And the volunteers. Oh, look, they all have on my T-shirts. And also the Stay Woke folks. I know the girl who designed Stay Woke shirts for the cover of Essence. It's Gloss Rags. If you guys haven't heard about them, you should definitely get into that. They're amazing. So thank you so much. Let's give the committee another round of applause for doing amazing work. So the theme for this year's conference is United and Strong, Rising Through the Struggle. And what an appropriate theme for this year. Yes, we're going to go there today. That's going to be kind of the focal point for this speech, but I have another title, but I want to walk you through this story quickly first. Isabella Bumfree was born into slavery in upstate New York around 1797. This woman's activist, this woman's civil rights activist, and this abolitionist knew after escaping slavery herself that it wasn't enough for her to get free. No, she must free the hearts, minds, and bodies of her black brothers and sisters. She went on to try to liberate the hearts, minds, and bodies of a nation. Speaking of rising through the struggle, this year's theme, imagine hers. We can't. The struggle was real. This marvelous black woman later changed her name to Sojourner Truth in 1843, saying, "The Spirit calls me and I must go." It was with that purpose, that mission in mind, that led Sojourner to deliver a powerful speech entitled, "Ain't I a Woman?" This speech was delivered at the Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio in 1851. I imagine her speech reading somewhat like her poem of the same title. That man over there say, a woman needs to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches, and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me a best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get to it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children. Wow. That wasn't in there. And seen most all sold into slavery. And when I cried out a mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? That little man in black there say, a woman can't have as much rights as a man, because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, she's talking about Eve for you non-Bible readers. Together, women ought to be able to turn it right side up again. Well, I wonder what Sojourner would say to us today. I wonder how she would instruct us given our discord and the current state of the struggle. This speech today is entitled, It's 2017 and Ain't I a Woman? Your President Donald Trump. Yeah, well, he's not my president. Ran a campaign that belittled the efforts of women and communities of color, and he won. We have a commander-in-chief who bragged about sexually assaulting women, literally grabbing them by the vajayjays. Mrs. Cleaver's in here, so that's what I'm saying. Looks like Melania isn't the only woman who's been batting away the hands of Donald Trump. And it's unfathomable that 53% of white women voted for the opposition for our oppressor, given the significant numbers of attacks on women right now. Instead of working diligently to become a champion of women's rights, women's access to higher learning, women's entrepreneurship, he chose to discontinue a program like Let Girls Learn that was stood up by our First Lady, my still First Lady, Michelle Obama, and to make it more difficult to receive access to birth control, among so many other things. Don't I have a right to learn? Don't I have the right to decide what's best for my own body? Isn't it 2017 and ain't I a woman? Just a few days ago, during the hearing with Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the first black senator from the state of California, Kamala Harris, asked him questions challenging him on earlier statements he made in that same hearing. Well, Jeff Sessions said, I almost couldn't get that out, she was making him nervous. John McCain interrupted her questioning. She had the floor, it was her turn, but he interrupted her questioning to demand that she let the chair run the hearing in the middle of her questions. Well, it's 2017. Ain't I a lawyer? And ain't I a woman? And in Senator Harris's case, yes, she was elected, ain't I the immediate past Attorney General of the state of California? There was a Muslim woman who was recently beaten because she engaged in religious freedom in this country. But yet she's been blamed for terrorist attacks that she has nothing to do with because folks are too dumb to read the statistics that say that Muslims are terrorized far more by folks that are participating in entities like ISIS than we ever will be. This woman beaten on our own soil, a place where religious freedom is supposed to be protected. Isn't it 2017? And ain't I a woman? A few months ago, in the midst of being caught up in a barrage of sexual harassment allegations, Bill O'Reilly opted to become an even bigger embarrassment and distraction by likening the appearance of the Queen of the Resistance to James Brown. Yes, I call Congresswoman Maxine Waters the Queen of the Resistance, Queen Maxine. Yeah, you can clap for her, she's doing it. Because she is giving life quite literally in the resistance movement. He talked about her hair while she talked about what it meant to be a patriot in the Trump era. Being a patriot means being brave and diligent in seeking out the truth, because clearly there's some stuff unfolding every single day. But somebody forgot to tell old Bill that it won't end well for him coming for Queen Maxine. Because it's 2017. Ain't I fully capable of getting to the bottom of Russiagate? And ain't I a woman? Also a few months ago, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer tried to undermine a well-respected journalist. And for far too long, our only representation in the White House press briefing room, April Ryan. Somebody forgot to tell Sean, you can't come for April either. It is 2017. Ain't I able to fully report on the truth? Ain't I able to ask the tough questions? And ain't I a woman? On the day of Donald Trump's inauguration, January 20th, 2017, women all over the world stood together in solidarity, showing we can unify when the going gets tough. The toughest among us. Come on, Sojourner. Get going. 673 marches took place across the world on that dreadful day. It was a movement led by women who brought together 5 million people to show the world that women's rights are human rights, and we can and we will fight to protect them. Ain't I a woman? In the face of unprecedented sexism and racism, in spite of being the baddest First Lady we've ever seen, Michelle Obama told us, when they go low, we go high. Well, she's a much better woman than I am. But ain't I a woman? I'm so serious, I'm not going high right now. Sorry, and if there are any Trump folks in the audience, this is gonna be rough for you. You might wanna exit now. When you consider the campaign, the 2016 campaign, and yes, the narrative from the campaign is one of the many reasons Michelle Obama is a better woman than I am, I think about the bigotry, the blatant sexism, the tremendous double standard. When we consider all that we saw in living color on our TV screens, even though we normally see it every day in our places of work, the places where we go to school, the places where we shop, this was bold and outrageous, literally on our TV screens. And so you have to think, maybe even sheepishly, ain't I a woman? Right? On a tangent, because I have to go here, I try to do it as much as I can. I said this to Mrs. Cleaver at breakfast today. If you think about Barack Obama, if he just would have done 1/100th of this stuff, right? And so that's why I'm walking around here mad and on edge. Pray for me if y'all pray. If not, send me good energy vibes or something, but I'm mad as hell about that. So far too often, speaking of being mad as hell, far too often people often ask me, isn't it hard to be on air with folks who think like that? Don't you ever just want to choke them? How do you do that? How do you keep your composure? I don't always keep my composure. But how do you keep your composure? Does so-and-so really believe what they're saying? Does so-and-so really believe the words that are coming out of their mouth? You know, and my response is very, very, very simple. I think about what our ancestors endured. I think about how they overcame. And what I do every day on air is a cakewalk compared to that. What we all do every day, even if we're not on television, is a cakewalk compared to that. When I consider the many women throughout history who blazed trails, who opened doors, who persisted and resisted, I pull from their strength. I'm not doing something that's so hard, that's so challenging, that's just insurmountable. It's not an obstacle that can't be moved. I'm running my mouth. I'm telling you what I think. That's liberating to me. That's freeing to me. And I think about the other work that I do. It's still a cakewalk. Yeah, it gets hard sometimes. But I get to stand on the shoulders of women who open these doors, who blaze these trails. We get to stand on their shoulders. Ain't I a woman? I had a situation with an ex-boyfriend. And I think this is important too, because in all of this, you all were, I think, very thoughtful about having a holistic conversation. So I don't want everything to be political. Although, like, you know, somebody said ball is life, politics is life to me. But I think it's important to kind of talk about the struggles that we incur holistically. But I have an ex-boyfriend. We had an argument one day. And in this argument, he said, "Why don't you dumb down?" Yes, girl. Y'all like, oh no, what did she say? Why don't you dumb down? And I remember, I'm surprised I remember, because you would think that you would have blacked out. But I remember in this moment trying to figure out how to respond to that. Because I was raised by two feminists, my mom and my dad, right? I was raised by two people who told me that I could always do whatever I wanted to do, to always give my very best. Many of us in this room were taught that we had to be twice as good or 3 times good or 50 times as good for obvious reasons. Look at the White House. I know this wasn't supposed to be political, but I told you politics is life. And so when you think about what we often have to experience, dumbing down, especially for women of color, is not even an option. It's also one not worth pursuing, but I'll get to that. So I remember being shocked because I was trying to think about what that meant. And to me, what that meant, I'm sure that many of you have similar stories. It may not be dumbed down, but it may have been like someone talking over you, right? Or someone telling you you're emotional, which someone told me on air the other day, and it was probably the least emotional I'd ever been on air, which, you know, I have a lot of passion, so that was tough. Or someone commenting on, like we talked about Kamala Harris earlier, saying she was hysterical. There was a commentator on CNN saying she was hysterical, and I'm trying to figure out when. Maybe there was a moment that cut off the camera that we didn't see. But you think about, which didn't happen, but you think about dumbing down. And that means that somebody is so intimidated by what you bring to the table that they need you to shrink so that they can feel powerful. Well, this is in church, but it sounds like church right now, so I'll just say the devil is a liar. And we don't have any time for that. I said ain't too many times, so I'm not going to say that. But I'm about to say it now. But there's nothing dumb about us. And if you can't handle this black girl magic, you'll snap to that. Why are you asking me to become something I'm not and I have no interest in being? Because ain't I a woman? Those moments in meetings, right, with our clients or with our bosses or with our colleagues, where we say, I'm sorry, but I just, right? I just have to say one thing. I know that I'm sorry. Or I just have one thing to add. Or we speak far more quiet than we would in any other circumstance. Or even in class, where you don't want to always raise your hand and sound like you have all the answers. Those are the moments where we are choosing to dumb down, to shrink so that somebody else can feel bigger. And I still would challenge you with, ain't I a woman? Women, we make up 51% of the United States population. Yet we are underrepresented in courtrooms, in boardrooms, and in elected office. For example, in the United States House of Representatives right now, in the United States Senate right now, we only make up 20%. And yet we're the majority in this country. Women, the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, and it's even faster when you look at the growth of black women-owned businesses since the late 1990s. But we still struggle to grow our businesses because of the lack of access to capital. And even more so after the mortgage bubble burst in 2008. Women, to that 51%. Can you imagine what would happen if we were united and strong? Can you remember the Gatorade commercial? Anything you can do, I can do better. That's true, by the way. We do everything better. Like, it's really, really true. We do everything better. I'm serious. We were leading this resistance better. We talked about Queen Maxine already. She told James Comey when he didn't have any credibility. She told you all during the tax march, right before tax day, right, that we needed to stop his AWS. Again, I'm not cussing because Mrs. Cleaver's here. But it's true, we do everything better. We make the best leaders. There was a moment last Congress where there needed to be a budget negotiation deal done. And they kept coming to a stalemate. They couldn't reach a negotiating point that worked for both sides. Women did that. Women did that. We make the best leaders. We make the best strategists. We make the best negotiators. We make the best communicators. So it's so hard to understand why women don't understand that we could have had a woman leader of the free world. I'm going back to that 53% now of white women who saw it in their best interest not to elect the first woman president. Now, we know that Hillary Clinton had some challenges, but when you look at what's in there now, Hillary looks like Michael the Archangel. Serious. We're talking about emails, y'all. We were talking about emails. This dude asked for the Russians to hack into her emails during the campaign. Jeff Sessions yesterday, they just said that he asked for a meeting with a Russian lobbyist, and this was after he went in there lying again. That's why he was nervous. He wasn't nervous because a black woman was asking him questions. He was nervous because he was lying. Hear him chuckling, talking about, well, maybe I might, could, possibly, I think. So going back to women being the best, we make the best question askers. When I tell you, sorry, I'm off on a tangent a little. We do. How many of you all, I'm sorry, this is funny. I know I'm saying I'm sorry after I said don't say that, but I'm off on a tangent, so I am kind of sorry. my friends, my good girl sister friends and their boyfriends, when I tell you Inspector Gadget has nothing on a woman of color on a mission to find out the truth, like, no, I'm serious. I'm so serious. Like, where were you? Well, because I called you at 8:49. And at 8:50, it sounded like a subway, so you couldn't have been sitting down reading. So I'm just telling you, the independent commission that the United States House of Representatives, Democrats, are trying to stand up, they could just make that thing all women, and we would find out the truth about Russiagate and be well on our way to getting another president. I'm just saying. You don't even have to go to law school. It's like a gift. It's just a gift. Well, I hear shoes clacking on the pavement that sounds like heels. So who are you walking with? On FaceTime. Well, I see a bookshelf in the back. That bookshelf is not at your house. You can't be at home. I'm sorry, but it is true. Anyway, okay, I'm back. Ain't I a woman? But we are the bravest, we are the smartest, we are the baddest. I'm about to shade my dad a little bit, but I have to give you guys this story too. I love my dad, I'm a daddy's girl. My dad is a wuss, okay? So he will get a common cold and have a cough and claim it's pneumonia. He's a hypochondriac, which I've slightly inherited, but he's way worse. Like, he will have a paper cut and be like, to my mom, my mom's name is Andrea, Andrea, I need a Band-Aid, it's just, I can't. He's like falling apart. So we are the strongest. Sojourner told you in her poem, she told you, but anyway. So here we are, 51%. And I want to get to this theme of united and strong. 51% and can't pull it together. Can't pull it together. We find reason after reason why we can't come together and stay together. You think about the Women's March. Women's March was run by some of my friends. And you think about the hope that came out of that moment and what needed to happen afterwards. They gave a very clear prescription of what our next steps should be. I think it was 9 steps, 9 things that they wanted everybody to do. And we fizzled out around point 2. We couldn't do 7 more things together. We find reasons. I remember fighting with some of my black friends about the Women's March saying, well, I'm not coming together with white women because traditionally and historically they've stepped on us. And all of that is true. All of that is true. But if you can't look past common misunderstandings to fight a misogynist, a bigot, and a racist in the White House, we have a problem. Like, what will it take for us to come together in spite of some of our differences so that we can advance women and the country? When you sit around today and throughout this conference, and you know you're here, y'all know we love to conference and to talk and write think pieces and stand up. Somebody, they're gonna ask me a question and they're still, even though she said don't have a long, that's still gonna happen. And that's fine. I might cut you off if it looks like there are a lot of questions. But my point is, what is it going to take for us to move? I've said so often throughout this year that this can't be another speech, right, that I'm delivering to you. It has to be a call to action. And it can't stop at the call, like we actually have to move and do something. So I would implore you all, as you sit around for the rest of the conference, you're here engaging with each other, building with each other, getting hope-filled and lifted up, that you go out from this room and you do something with all of that energy. Don't just wear a nice t-shirt, although I appreciate the support. And I know Glossy Rags does too. But really do something with that. It's not enough to stay woke if you don't act woke. You're not conscious because you can cite W.E.B. Du Bois quotes and, you can say, ain't I a woman in a speech 1,000 times. That's not woke. What are you doing to blaze a trail for someone else just like all of our ancestors blazed trails for us? How will you open a door? How will you ensure that you're not just the first and the only somewhere. But you're the first, and you open a door for so many more. That's what it's about when we talk about being united and strong and rising through a struggle. That is what all of this is all about. There's a quote from Oprah that I love, and this, I think, hopefully will bring us back to the vision aspect of this theme. She asked this question: how will you use the energy of your personality to serve that which is your soul's calling? How will you use the energy of your personality to serve that which is your soul's calling? What is your mission in life? What is your purpose? It's not just your job or your title or your degrees. It's not the latter or the former either. It's not because you don't have a degree. Or it's not that even if you dropped out of school or you didn't finish on time. None of that has to do with the energy of your personality or your soul's calling. What are you put here to do? When we talk about the resistance, because I'm requiring that all of you are a part of it, what is your role in the resistance? How will you empower someone else to keep going? One of the biggest challenges historically for communities of color, with an emphasis on Black communities, our agenda often dies down and dies out because there's not someone to come behind you to help lift up your hands. It's a biblical concept, right? When your arms get tired, someone's there to lift up your arms. We don't have a succession plan. And there's no succession plan because for us, so often power is tied just to the politics of visibility. Who can you see? There's no real economic opportunity, so it's just about visibility. Nobody wants to get out of the limelight because they know when they're out of the limelight, all opportunity is gone. So there's a lot of conversation, too often, about why CBC members don't retire and who are the young people going to run against them. You're not talking about running against the white folks. But you don't understand, we don't understand, that sometimes the only reason they're there is because there's nothing when they're done. We've not set up a succession plan for our elders, and we've not set up ways to build a bench for the young people. What is your role in all of that? How do we find unity and strength in that? Is your soul, is there something in your soul that's tugging at you that says that's the problem that you're supposed to fix? I know for me, I don't care what I do, the most important thing to me is that I'm opening a door for someone else, that I'm building a bridge for someone else to cross later. That probably means I have to stop burning some of them, so I have to be nicer to these people on TV. But seriously, we really have to think through that. When I always say that if it's not making a difference, I don't want to do it. But I have to dig a little deeper. What does making a difference really mean? What does it really mean? Is it making a difference because I can yell and scream and fight? How am I preserving opportunities for other people? If I'm only worried about the opportunity that comes for me afterwards, I've failed. That is what I call the legacy of the one and only. And that is a dangerous legacy. That is one that most of our ancestors didn't pursue. So I implore you to think through what it means to be united and strong, and how your soul's calling can align with your sister at your table right now, regardless of her race, regardless of her background, regardless of her academic achievements or her professional achievements. How does it align, and how will we mobilize a people through this resistance? Okay, we're gonna do call and response, because it's not Black church, but it kind of is. Because y'all been, Okay, here we go. You're gonna repeat after me, okay? So it's different call and response, okay. I am Michelle. You don't have to say this part. Unapologetically sharing my brilliance and courage with the world. I am Dolores. Fighting for equal pay for equal work and laying the groundwork for women activists who come after me. I am Angela. Talking about Davis, not me. Bravely taking on oppression even when the odds are stacked against me. I am Sonia. holding court and challenging male-dominated ideology to ensure we find the truth in justice. I am Harriet. Liberating the minds and bodies of my people. I am Sojourner. Ain't I still a woman in 2017? In the face of struggle, I will not be a shrinking violet. I will not be a wallflower. I will rise. I will rise through the struggle. We will win if we are united. If we are strong, we must win. Resist, y'all. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Questions. So the only request I have is that you really have a question. I would love to hear your name. I would love to hear where you're from, but please ask a question. I believe there are microphones, so don't raise your hands. Just approach the mics right here and right here. Let's have a conversation. Oh, good, there's a water. I was just about to ask for one. Can you hear me swallow? I feel like I heard me swallow. Who made it first? You made it first? Are you standers? I think you made it first.
Hello, my name is Alesia Kennedy. I'm a city councilwoman here in Kansas City. And as
Woo! Speaking of representation in our politics.
Thank you. And as the only African American woman on this current council, the importance is making impact. Now you said something very key, which was, why don't people get out of the way? Talking about opportunities. What does that really look like when you talk about the succession plan for the elder statesman? Mm-hmm. Because that was my opponent in my race, was the elder statesman. Took a different approach to get there, but then creating the bench for the young people. So being a person currently in position to make those impacts, what does that framework look like?
So let me say this first, because I don't want this to be confused. I'm not talking about old people, pushing old people out the way. That's not what I said. That's not how I wanted to represent. I'm also not I'm not trying to make it seem like that's what you did in your race. So just to clarify that part too. When I talk about a succession plan, what I'm talking about is the fact that so often, I think particularly in marginalized communities, in the Black community, we are constantly in a state of reacting. We go from crisis to crisis. And the reason why we go from crisis to crisis is because we literally don't have time to do anything else. Or so we think, right? There's always, we know that, Black Lives Matter, and the movement will fizzle out, but it's not gone until the next Black person is shot and killed by the police. And so we're constantly in a state of reacting instead of proactively solving for or creating a plan. And so when I think about, like my former CBC bosses, one person in particularly comes to mind, and I didn't work for him, but I remember thinking, and I hope that this does the same thing for you all as it did for me, Congressman Major Owens, who was like the HBCU godfather, right? Like he was always fighting for our institutions and was just amazing. Probably should have been able to retire from Congress based on everything he knew about education policy and preside over a school, be a president of a university. Probably he could have done it at a TWI, like UMKC, a traditionally white institution, or he could have went to an HBCU, but he didn't. The opportunity that was given to Congressman Major Owens when he left was to be a fellow at the Library of Congress. It's a job that paid him around the same amount as his congressional job paid. We look at the disparities in wages in communities. Many of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus are making the most money they've ever made in their lives. It's $175,000 a year. Now, to some people, it's like, ooh, that sounds like a lot. But when you have to find places to live in 2 places, wherever you live in your congressional district and in DC, and then they get driven around mostly by their staffers, white members of Congress are like, that they're divas, they're divos, they get driven around. They get driven around because they can't afford a car. They didn't come from a trust fund like you did. And so here's my point. If we aren't solving for the gaps and the disparities in our economics, we're going to continue to have people who find their financial freedom in jobs of public service or in presiding over civil rights organizations or whatever. And we know, many of us, that that's still not a lot of money. There are people that go to 4 board meetings a year for a corporation and get paid more than that. Do you know what I'm saying? And we just don't think about it that way. And then there's the real woke among us that think if you do anything for a corporation, you sold out. Well, congratulations, woke. Your kid's gonna be have student loan debt just like you. Congratulations, that's real woke. It's not.
Thank you.
At all. But I'm sorry, now back to your point. Ain't I a woman and ain't I on a tangent? My only point is that we have to start looking holistically at our agenda. It needs to include economic, community, and political. All of those movements are important in propelling us forward. And it's not about displacing our elders or building a bench for the young folks alone. It's about collectively how all of those things flow together. And we've got to get to a point where we say, we are in too much of a crisis not to be proactive. And we've got to figure out a way to walk and chew gum at the same time. More of us, because too many of us are just doing one or the other.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, Ms. Rai.
Hi.
My name is
Angela
Melanie.
works.
Hello,
basic.
Angela.
Yeah.
My name is Melanie Walker, and I am here from Kansas City, Missouri. My question is, one of the things that I am always interested in knowing about people that I admire is what you're reading or what you've read that has really influenced your life. And so I want to know if you have any book recommendations for us, particularly for those of us who want to know more about this political climate and how we got here. And if not about politics necessarily, just any book recommendations that you can give us for things that changed your life.
Okay. So first I'm going to give you like the last book I read, which is Black Privilege. It's by Charlemagne the God, who's like a brother to me. Y'all are laughing, but it's a really good book. Very good read. Very good read. About principles of kind of identifying and finding what your black privilege is, which he argues is spiritual and not the same thing as white privilege at all. The other thing that I would say is there are a number of books that I read growing up that shaped kind of just my overall thought system. One of my favorites is the autobiography of Assata Shakur, The Souls of Black Folk, W.E.B., anything by Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. I love him, that's my mentor too. And then in terms of the current political climate, something that I think sheds light on this that folks didn't pay attention to as much as they should have is a book called What's the Matter with Kansas? I know we're not in Kansas. I know that, I know. But we're close enough, and this book is appropriate. What's the Matter with Kansas? Because I think it really breaks down this whole idea of like the hungry, driven pursuit of the white working class, like forgetting that like Black and Latino and Native American working people have the same struggles and thoughts, and you probably should pursue everybody at the same doggone time, but I digress. That book talks about how folks vote their dreams and not their interests, right? Like, that's one of the biggest issues that we have. It's like, ooh, Donald Trump has a young wife and big cars and jets. I want to be like him, but you work in a coal mine. Like, what are you doing? And he doesn't have a he didn't have a provision for black lung disease in his bill, but Obamacare did. But anyway, so that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Oh, yes. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Milton Roberts. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I live within walking distance of a little place called Ferguson.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time on the ground in Ferguson.
Thank you. Seriously, we should actually give her a round of applause. That's important work. Thank you.
I get emotional when I talk about Ferguson.
I'm
but,
sure. I'm sure.
I guess my question is, when I was on the ground as one of the elders, my job was to be a gap filler, to translate. And I've worked in diversity and inclusion, OD, all kinds of stuff. And when I looked around, I didn't see y'all. And so I'm just translating for the kids. I didn't see y'all. I didn't see people that were my age. They were all saying, how come they're not at home and where are their parents and all that. So how do I get people that are my age to go stand with the Bloods and the Crips and the boys around the block, because you know what? They are boys, and they're good boys. There's nothing wrong with them. And it was very hurtful to me because I didn't see y'all. And so, we want white folks to fix their problems, but we gotta fix our problem. And part of our problem is that we weren't there. When all that went down, we weren't there. So, you're talking about having a succession plan and so forth. And you're talking about people wearing T-shirts that say woke. Well, they woke about this. They're not woke about that, okay? Because if you don't understand what those kids are going through, you're not woke, okay? They're not, and then this is bad. I'm a baby boomer. We were talking about this earlier. I'm a baby boomer that operates out of Gen X, but I hang around with too many millennials, so that's how I present. So I apologize.
No, it's great. Don't apologize.
Yeah, okay.
You're not saying sorry anymore. We ain't sorry. Beyonce.
Right. So, right. So the last thing I'll say, and I'll be quiet, because I kind of like you, I go on tangents, okay? If you want to hear what the young people are thinking and feeling, then you do need to listen to some of their music, okay? Just like we wanted our parents to listen to ours. And if you get mad because they're saying MF, and you're getting mad because they're saying the B word and so forth, then you need to change their environment so they don't say it, okay? Because people write about what they know and what they feel. And I'm quoting T.I. now, which is really scary, but.
No, T.I. is a good way to
Yeah,
quote.
because they write about what they know and feel. So don't discount them. Don't not listen, okay? Because seriously, we had boys out there crying because y'all weren't there. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I help people like me? You got your little Beamer or whatever. How do I help you understand that, first off, those boys are not going to hurt you. You're their people. And secondly, they needed you.
Yeah.
And we weren't there.
Thank you. That's tough because, again, I kind of talked, so speaking of privilege, like my privilege is I grew up in a 2-parent household where my parents told me, again, I could do whatever I wanted to. My dad mentors young people right now, like in protest, like how to protest. I'm not a protester. My dad is. He has a bullhorn in his trunk. He is serious about protesting. Like for real, gets the banners made. There's all types of banners in my mother's garage. She's over it. They've been in there for 30 years. But I don't know what that's like to not have elders who will pour into you and show you the way and try to lovingly correct you if it's not, the right way, or who will listen to you if they think that their way could be modified or remixed. And so I can't stand that either. My friend Jeff Johnson, one of my favorite things that he says so often is there's a difference between elders and old people. And what you're talking about, the folks who didn't show up were old people. Old people who are stuck in their ways, afraid to engage. And unfortunately, that just creates more danger for all of us, because that means that there's something that's irreparably broken in our community. So I don't know what the answer would be. I think I would urge you to continue talking to your peers and ask them point blank why they weren't there, or what would it take to get them there. So you don't want people to feel bad because they didn't know to show up maybe. But what do I need to do to get you there? How do we come together as a community intergenerationally to not just have a dialogue, but to have a movement? And I think those are the types of things we should be doing, not just talking about. I think that's how we become actively woke. But I really appreciate you sharing that, and I'm thankful. I'm dying to know what you listen to. I want to know. Who's your favorite rapper?
Right now, I like a lot of Future. I like Chance. I like that.
Oh, she's serious. Yeah, she said Future and Chance. Just don't try any Molly or Percocets, and we're good. She rapping now. Okay, she got bars. All right, next.
First of all, we need to give her a round of applause
Right?
for listening to music.
Thank you.
My name is Lana Perry, and I am a transplant to Kansas City by way of Cleveland, Ohio. And I am yeah, hometown. I am one of 2 black women on the Greater Kansas City Women's Political Caucus Board.
Wonderful.
And so my question to you is, towards looking at political climate and looking at all these things and saying, so joining the board, my question was, where's the diversity? Where can we reach out, to certain women of color? And my question, because oftentimes I find that we try to reach out and it's often falling on deaf ears. So what is, from organizational standpoint, what's the best way to engage? Because I'm a woman of color and you'll listen, but then you hear organizations I'm involved in, or you say, they're not really for women of color. Well, they're not going to be if you don't present them issues, if you don't. So how do you bridge the gap between organizations that are looking to accomplish the same thing?
And you're saying organizations for women of color, or organizations that should include women of color?
Organizations that should include women of color.
That gets to be a tiring fight. It does, and I understand exactly what you're saying. One of the most notable, I don't know who said this to begin with, but one of the most notable quotes around is, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Mm-hmm. And so I get it, but I just think we just tired of being on the menu. Like, it's just like, where else do we plug in? And I think that, again, another church thing, so often you hear that 20% of the people in a congregation do 80% of the work. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's unique to church. I think that is, it can be tied into activism. It can be tied into movement building, community building, economic development initiatives, folks who choose to run for office, right? It's always the same kind of story. And to you, I would just encourage you to pick your battles. Which organizations do you think we have the most opportunity to change the game, to shift their paradigm, and encourage your peers to do that? When you think about it, you're not throwing anyone under the bus here, but when you think about one of the organizations where you're like, man, if we could just get involved, what would that organization be?
Well, actually, it's my organization.
Say this. You said it's a political.
Yeah, Greater Kansas City Women's Political Caucus.
How many of you all have heard of that organization? Okay, how many of you all would like to learn more about that organization? Very good. So there's a room full of people. Tell me your name again.
Lana Perry.
Lana is going to be standing right up here as soon as I'm done. And I want all of y'all, I'm going to be watching too. All of y'all raise your hands. Go over there and talk to her. Don't come talk to me. Go talk to Lana. And I will wait for you if you want to talk to me, if you talk to Lana first. But she needs y'all. She getting tired. She can get somebody hold up her arm.
By myself.
Okay. See, we got a call to action happening already. Way to go, Lana. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. Angela, thank you so much for coming. We really are inspired by and gratified by your remarks, because you're telling us things we know, but we needed someone to say them out loud for us. Thank you. My name is Adrian Walker Horde. I'm a fine artist and a professor here in Black Studies. I teach African American art history. And so my question is, you've talked about the community and economics and political power. Where are the arts in your agenda for this succession? How do we engage? I'm doing my part on my small level locally, and I have a project in South Africa with women artists there. So I'm global, but I'm working locally. So how do the arts fit into your picture? How do we get engaged?
I love that question, and I don't have the answers, so let me do this. Adrian just told y'all what she does. How many artists are in here? How many of you all know that the arts are invisible in a resistance movement? So that's, really, y'all? I know that too. Really? It's only, anyway, the artists, I want you to see Adrian. Adrian's going to tell me what I could do to make sure that the arts are present in a resistance agenda. One thing I will tell you, Adrian, that I've really leaned into more now, I believe media is a type of artistry as well.
Yes.
And so I've learned since the election, I had a early midlife crisis thanks to this election. Seriously, when I tell you guys I'm dead serious, I'm so serious. Talkspace on my iPhone was, it was almost tapped out. It was tired of me. You guys will look that up later, it's fine. But one of the things that I really think is that the best way for us to mobilize people is communicating with them through the arts, through film, through television shows, through documentaries, through creativity, through photographs. Think about Gordon Parks' and the civil rights movement. Think about how that moved the needle on consciences that were completely asleep, right? And so there's definitely a lot of things to be said for that. So I hope you all, Adrian is volunteering, although she didn't know she was, to pull the artists together to figure out what role artists should play in this movement. I think it's great, and thank you, because that's a blind spot for me. I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you, and I've got something for you, so that you said I could give you instruction.
Oh, she got it, Mimo. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, and this is fancy. It's like lifted. This is, the writing is lifted.
Since you mobilized me, I thought I would do the same for
Oh,
you.
thank you. This is good. I got some instructions. Okay, yes, ma'am. You know I'm opening this right now, Adrian.
How do I follow a gift?
I don't know if it's a gift. She might have gave me a memo like, you know, what I need to do, get it together. You not woke. You don't even have the arts involved. I'm trying to tell you. Oh, this is nice. Okay, I'm listening. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Hi, thank you for coming and speaking. My name is Diane Burkholder. I'm a community organizer here in town. I've helped out with this conference for the last now 4 years, so it's really like a beautiful moment to see Black and brown women in the same room being unapologetic in who we are. And so with that, you were speaking a little bit about doing collaborative work, particularly women of color. And here in this conference has become it was the Black Women's Conference, and now it's the Women of Color Conference. And if you could speak a little bit to the ways in which, yes, there's anti-Blackness in many communities, right? And that Black folks are pitted against other communities of color. But the ways in which, particularly, there's mostly Black folk in this room, that we can work together as women of color, because we often fight and be like, well, we're women of color and y'all women aren't, right? And how we like Paku said earlier, like you talked about collaborative work, we don't need white folks to do that work for us. So if you could talk a little bit how you've collaborated with other women of color, non-Black women of color, and how that has been successful. And then the woman that just spoke, there is an Artists of Color collective here in town, Kansas City Artists of Color, KCAOC, on Facebook, and it's Artists of Color Collective, to have these discussions, because we know the art world here in Kansas City is very white, so that's a resource. But if you could speak a little bit about collaborating with non-Black women of color and creating power that way.
Sure. So again, shout out to Mom and Dad. I was raised in a house where a rainbow coalition wasn't an option. I'm from Seattle, Washington, born and raised, and where I grew up, the intersectional nature of the struggle of movement building was just front and center. My dad fought alongside a little white woman who's about 4'6". She might have been taller than that, but in my mind, Marjorie Prince was about 4'6". I'm sorry, if she ever sees this, she might kill me. But she's really tiny. Was his main partner on protesting apartheid in South Africa. My dad helped to open a center in Seattle called El Centro de la Raza with one of he calls him his brother, Roberto Maestas. The struggles that Native Americans in Washington State experienced. My dad was front and center there. Like, all I ever saw was movement building with other people of color. So it wasn't until I got to DC and I was like, oh, we have silos like this? I didn't understand it. When you think about what happened with immigration reform and some of the rhetoric that Black people were using about immigrant communities, as if there aren't people all throughout the diaspora where the ship just landed someplace else who still have to get a green card to come here, or their papers. Like, how dare we be that ignorant? So I would argue to you, now more than ever, and really always, but now more than ever, we can't afford to be divided that way. Too many of our issues are overlapping, whether we're talking about the disparities in pay, we're talking about the challenges in getting contracts with the federal government, state governments, local governments. We're talking about our representation on corporate boards. We're talking about access to grant funding to run initiatives that we care about. All of these communities struggle in the same way. Imagine what would happen if we came together. We're no longer a minority because there's a majority of us coming together. The numbers are literally going to change within the next few years. Why would we not do that? How can we afford not to do that? So my short answer is I have no idea why that's a problem. We should be ashamed of ourselves. We need to move on. Otherwise, we acting like your Twitter hands president. Seriously. Like, it's ignorant. Adrian, I love this. It's called Homegirl Inc. Like, I'm here for this. She sells jewelry, you guys. This is really cool, and these pictures are amazing. Anyway, yes. Yes, I'm sorry. I thought it was one over here.
My name is Robin Humphrey, and I'm from Kansas City. My question is, well, we did the call and respond exercise. How would you describe your response to that if the question were posed to you? And then also, was there a pivotal moment in your life that led you to your purpose?
Which part of the call and response? Sorry.
Well, if I said, I am Angelo Rai.
Oh, but we didn't. We said we were Angela Davis.
Well, okay, what's your purpose then? If I came to you and was like, what's your pitch? What would your pitch be?
That means you stopped listening after that, because I told you already. I said that I believe my purpose and my mission in life was to make a difference, and that I often wrestle with what the difference really is. And to me, if I'm not making an impact in some way, I feel like I failed.
Okay.
I know that is overly broad in general and probably not helpful, which is why you didn't remember it, and it's okay. But it's the truth. So for me, it's like, I don't feel like, I just have to be running this firm, or I just have to be working on the Hill, or I just had to work at this nonprofit for HBCUs first, or I just had to start Impact. Imagine that. Maybe I did have to do that. But the point is, I don't know that there's one singular path. I believe that we are created in this life. I believe in God. We're created in this life. We all have a purpose, and we know it. Like, there's something in our spirits that just jumps, like when we know it's the right thing. So right now, and I was saying this earlier in response to part of what Adrian raised, I'm really leaning into the media space, because I'm like, I can hit a lot more. In law school, I was like, I'm going to be a trial lawyer. I'm going to work for Johnny Cochran, because he was the man. And I had an offer with the Cochran firm after my internship with Maxine Waters. Like, went to LA because I'm going to get this offer with the Cochran firm. Got that. He died. That's sad, but I was like, and this is so terrible, but this is just, let me tell you, the Congresswoman came to National Black Law Student Association Convention. I invited her to be a keynote speaker. She walked in the door, and the first thing I said to her was like, Congresswoman Waters, where am I going to work? Johnny Cochran died. That was her friend. That's what I said. Does that me? Anyway, terrible. So I said, where am I going to work? And she said, bless her heart, because she loves us sometimes. She said, Angela, I told you to go to the Hill. I told you need to work on the Hill. And it was like, in that moment, I didn't go to the Hill directly, so I kind of listened to her, but I did go to DC. In that moment, it was like, I don't think I would be satisfied with the micro level change that comes about with client by client work. I am far more satisfied by macro level change, which is why I had the early midlife crisis after this election, because I'm like, what is this and what's happening? This ain't the change I believed in. What is this? And so then you have to say, okay, well, what is the change I believe in? How do I get that? I'm about to do some more stuff on air. Somebody on my team, you guys should look at my Instagram. I'm gonna do these videos to break down how foolish this crap is. You're just gonna start talking to our folks, and even like World Star will put them up, which is crazy, but yeah, I follow World Star too. But anyway, the point is, you just have to do what you're like. I feel this, and I'm going, and I think doors will open up.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question at all, but that's going to resonate with you later.
Thank you.
I think I have undiagnosed ADD a little bit. I do. I get that from my dad, too. My mom is not like that. She's so focused. Yes?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Dolores Jones. I am a TV personality, radio host here, author, speaker, social worker, and once one of the MCs for this event when it first got started. Nice. So it looks great to see all y'all after a long, long time. But my question comes from my company and my upcoming book called Finally Free. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of Finally Free is to restore, rebuild, and encourage women to break free from limitations and labels so they are free to live a life full of promise, principles, power, and prosperity. Mm-hmm. When I think in terms of being finally free, just gonna share something, and then this is part of the question, okay? I was born to a 15-year-old single mother, By the time she was 21, she was dead. And I'm now the granddaughter of a recovering crack addict. And as a result of that, I was a homeless teenage girl. And there was a point, Angela, where I just wanted to stop and quit, but there was Oprah Winfrey. And so I moved on, and so now I'm an established broadcaster and all of these things. But what is in my heart or my soul is about women being free. And what I found out is what was passed on to me was a generational behavior, but I broke it. And so what I want to ask you, what is something that you had to break free from in order to be the woman that you are today? And what would you say to women who are facing trials and situations from your past that we are bound by, so therefore you can't be free to be all that you can be? How did you do that, and how do you maintain it? Because those are two different things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a great question. I think I would share what I feel is kind of my most recent thing. And it came out of something that was kind of humorous during their election, but it came from a very real place. We were at the Democratic National Convention, and we were on air. It was during a later night thing, and it was after, I believe it was after Michelle Obama's speech. And I have a CNN colleague, Kayleigh McEnany, who was talking, and on the panel, I have my other sister friend, Maria Cardona. We were sitting next to each other, and Kayleigh was talking, and for the last couple nights, when Kayleigh said something we didn't agree with, it was kind of like the, oh, Lord. And in this particular moment, I didn't know I was on camera, and there was like the most dramatic extended eye roll ever. It was like, here she go, ooh, it was like really bad. And so it was caught on camera. Somebody took a picture of it or videoed it from their house, and the thing went viral like the next day. So now it's like the Rai roll. And I was so mad because I was just like, I say all this good stuff on air, and they're gonna have an eye roll to go. Like, I'm doing my neck too, because that's really what I was doing. I was like, they're gonna have this sister girl moment, and it's gonna go viral. And then people everywhere, white people, black people, green people, little people, tall people, all kinds of people from Australia, Africa. Everybody was like, that eye roll spoke to me. That's everything I think about this election. So I was like, oh, maybe the eye roll's not that bad. And so what is my point? In that moment, I think for me, because the election was outrageous, right? We already established this. But in that moment, I felt particularly free to be a black woman on air in the full expression of myself. And it was in that moment where I was like, I don't care how whoever they is in this moment, interpret what I'm doing on air anymore. I'm going to do me. So many times people would say, oh, you just really need a poker face. Oh my God, you can't control your face. Oh, and I decided I don't want to be controlled that way. If you say something dumb, I'm gonna look at you like you're stupid. If you say something that's crazy, I'm gonna tell you it's crazy. If you tell me that the president was born in Hawaii and somehow that means he needs to show his birth certificate because you too dumb to know that Hawaii is in the United States, I'm gonna tell you, boy, bye. Like, that is what I'm going to do, and you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, but I don't care, the underdogs are now on top. That is how we're going to roll. We are going to keep moving. And that's just, it's a shallow example, but I just feel like when you decide that you don't have to conform to anybody else's standards and you can just be you, I'm free. And like, you're not gonna be worried about, oh my God, I wonder what they're gonna say. Now, I've been in trouble a couple times. I got in trouble for saying ass backwards in the morning on air. Apparently you can say it at nighttime, but not in the morning. He was ass backwards in the morning. I've been in trouble for clapping at another commentator on air. I don't remember clapping, I blacked out. That's not what I said. Whatever. It wasn't really clapping, it was for emphasis. You all know that that's how we emphasize. But you learn that your freedom is just what it is. And there's a great line in a song that Common wrote about Assata Shakur, where at the end she says, I can tell you more about what freedom isn't. Right? And so we know what freedom isn't. We know the many ways that we have to wear, sheath dresses on air, and sometimes I'll wear a jean shirt now. Sometimes I'll wear, we built this joint for free. I'm gonna just do me. And you gonna love it or not, but I'm gonna be free. You know, and when they had things on TV, it said you shouldn't try this at home. Yeah. So just, you know, filter through what I said and do what you can and not get kicked off your job, out your class. Just, you know, spit out the bones if there's any bones in the fish. Okay. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Gayatri Bhatt, and I'm pleased to be an alumna of UMKC School of Education, and I just really appreciate my alma mater putting this on. I'm in college philanthropy. I flew in from Sarasota, Florida to come to this conference, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
My question is in the context of the shooting that happened at the congressional baseball practice. When you put in the name, I just did this about 5 minutes ago, Crystal Griner. The first picture that pulls up is the Baltimore Sun, and it's with her playing basketball. Mm-hmm. So immediately that, you know, tugs at me about the perception that's portrayed by the media from different professional perspectives, because the other police officer was in uniform when they showed that. How do we, as just general citizens, help interrupt that bias? And what's happening at the media level that there would be that much of a disparity between how men are portrayed or women of color are portrayed in something as so prominent as that, you know, tragedy?
You know, that's really interesting. I actually know Crystal. She's been a part of the Capitol Police detail that have protected us at some events. Whenever there are more than 4 or 5 members present, they normally have some part of a detail. I think there are 2 things present there with Crystal. One is she's lesbian, she has a wife. And so I think that was their way of trying to show that right off the bat. Like there's this, you know, this stereotype that if you play basketball at any advanced level, then you're automatically lesbian or gay, or at least for women. And I think they were trying to do that. And I think that in this moment, I'm more upset about the fact that if they were white officers, they would be deemed as heroes everywhere. But right now, it's just like they were just doing their jobs, you know. And the other officer was black as well. And the one thing that's interesting to me about the Capitol Hill Police, I worked there for 6 years. When I tell you all, when we think about model community policing, that's them. Them, like walking out, sometimes you're working 12, 13-hour days on the Hill, and you're walking out there like, you good? You gonna be all right? You know, or now when I go up there and they're telling me like, I saw you girl on air. Or another officer I remember, she was always like, I made hummingbird cake for the first time, and she was like, can you bring me a piece tomorrow? And I did. And then she was talking about that for a year, so then I felt bad I didn't make her any more cake. What's my point? I don't know. But what I would say to you is that I think I personally resent how they're being portrayed because I know these folks, you know, and that always makes a big difference. There are so many issues with the way that black people are being portrayed in the media that, to be honest with you, and I feel bad just hearing, you know, your concern about it, this didn't even, like, I've almost been desensitized to it. You know, I was just like, here they go again, and I just kept it moving. But how do we ensure that our consciences are pricked enough that we are bothered by it and we do push back against that bias? Like, they are actually real heroes for that. If they were not there, can you imagine the result of that shooting? So I guess my short answer is I really don't know, but it has to stop, because the way that we're portrayed in the media has everything to do with how we're treated in a stop and frisk or some other racially profiling like incident, whether it's with a TSA or a police department or the feds, right? I mean, the way that we're talked about on the House floor or the Senate floor, it has everything to do with that. And so going back full circle to the arts question, media controls so much of that. So how do we ensure that they know that they have responsibility to us? It all comes down to ratings and readership. You're talking about something in print. If you don't buy it, they can't print it. If you don't watch it, they won't show it. And so those are the types of questions internally we should be asking ourselves to hold ourselves accountable.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Let's give it up one more time for Angelo Rai.
Thank you so
She's
much.
one of my sheroes. And Angela, every time somebody says something to me at work, home, I'm like, ain't I a woman?
Yeah.
I'm using that today.
Do it.
My boss texts me, ain't I a woman? He's like, what?
No. See, I said filter through that, spit out the bones with fish. You might.
I don't know
your
about.
boss, ain't I a woman?
Well, if he texts me first, I can't.
What is he gonna text you? Give me
He
a
texts.
scenario.
He texts.
But what is he gonna
texts.
say? I don't want you to
Ask
lose
a question.
your job.
No, I'm not gonna. Oh, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm gonna use
Like, are you
wisdom.
coming to work? Ain't I a woman, girl?
No,
dog?
not that one.
Okay. Thank you.
I think an ain't I a woman would be, hey, do you want to come in for extra hour? Ain't I a woman? Let's give Angela a standing ovation for those powerful words.